Hi everybody, we're back again now to get ready to print our foam that we got ready last week for printmaking. We have our papers that we made last week that are the correct size, all ready to go. We are going to need watercolor markers, washable markers. And we're going to need a cup with a brush, a cup of water with a brush to wet the paper. So the first thing that we're going to do is, there's a couple ways that you can put ink onto your foam. One is that you can color this very particularly, each section, and then the background a different color. Okay, that's one way. It would be kind of how you would traditionally color a coloring page or a drawing. Another way that's really neat with printmaking is that we can color the whole piece of foam with one color here, right over the whole design, and then the design's going to still show up through those colors. So it's kind of something different that you can do with printmaking that you can't do as well with other materials. So I'm going to give this way a try rather than coloring it in very particularly each section of my monster. I'm going to look at the color wheel a little bit here first with you and just give a reminder that if you're doing something like this, you're going to need colors that will blend well together, and those colors would be the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Those are going to be great blending colors. If you're coloring each section one by one, like say I wanted my monster to be a different section than the background, etc., then you may be using complementary colors or whatever you've chosen. Just remember that if the complementary colors or the opposites here, if they blend or overlap on your coloring at all, they will turn brown and mucky. So just remember they do help each other to stand out when they're used next to each other, but they don't blend well. So just something to keep in mind. Another way to use color is maybe you want to identify a color group like warm colors all work well together, or cool colors all work well together. Okay, so make your decision as far as that goes, and I'm going to go ahead and ink up my foam, and I'm using my marker on the side. So instead of this pointy tip, I'm not coloring in little small areas, so I can just turn it on its side, and I'm going to color it to about halfway with blue. I'm just going to add, just for fun, a few little streaks of blue on this other side. And then I'm going to turn it into, just trying to hold on where I haven't used any marker yet, because anywhere where you touch it could get rid of the marker, and then you wouldn't have color in that area. So you want to be careful. I'm just barely holding on with a fingernail out here to try to not interrupt my coloring. Alright, so I blended it a little in the middle with both colors, and now I am ready to see what my first print turns out like. This is all ready to go. I'm going to get my paper wet. It doesn't have to be sopping wet, but I do just want to wipe some water on here with a brush or a Q-tip, because it just helps this color to release better on the paper. My paper's bubbling up a bit, so I'm going to hold it down with one hand and try to, if you need a second person around your house, you may want to gather them up before you line this up. It's sometimes easier when you have two sets of hands to line it up well. Hold it with one hand, and you want to rub over the entire plate all the way to the edges. A lot of times students forget the edges, so make sure you go all the way to the edges to rub it all the way down nicely. And then comes the big reveal. You get to pull it up from the paper and see how our print turned out. So there's my print, and it looks like Mrs. Scott could have rubbed a little better even here. But that's okay. This is the nature of printmaking. That's how you learn. So now I'm ready to take a cloth and just wipe off the color, because I may want to use, well, I do want to use a different set of colors. So I'm just getting my paper towel a little wet, wiping it off. But when I do wipe it off, I want to make sure that there's not any water left. If there's water left on the foam, the watercolor markers don't want to adhere to the foam. So make sure it's dry before you start your next color. Okay, so then I'm going to pick 2 new colors from my collection, and I'm going to make another print, and if I have time I could make 2 more because I have paper ready for that. So I cannot wait to see how your prints turn out. Make sure you take a picture of them and attach them to show Mrs. Scott in your assignment this week. Happy printing!